Welcome to the Real Estate Marathon Podcast, your guide in the race to financial freedom through real estate investing and sound financial practices. This podcast is for anyone interested in learning more about real estate investing, personal finances, and a new take on traditional retirement. Now, here are your hosts, Larry Fierro and Mike Moe.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Real Estate Marathon Podcast, your Monday morning motivation edition, where we follow up on our call to action from the previous episode. We hit you with a little motivation to start your Monday morning off right, and then we tee up our episode to come. And I am to come. Did I say to come or to come? I meant to come, but either way, I'm so dang excited about this episode coming up on Thursday, man. I can't even get my words out. Mr. Fierro, how you doing?
I'm doing good, dude. I was a little worried about you making a joke about me, my age, that with the gums.
There you go.
Yeah, right. So I just wanted to clarify that was not a spoof on anything about my age. So I appreciate that.
You have all your teeth, so you're not at denture level yet. So
so I'm almost there though. But anyway, I'm doing well in New York. It's actually a little chilly out, but there's no snow, so I can live with that. How about in Minnesota?
Can't complain, man. Can't complain at all. But it's December, dude. We're getting towards wrapping up 2020 and ready to knock out 2021 and start it off on a good foot. So
absolutely,
no complaints here.
Excellent. So, but yeah, no, I'm very excited, and I think for today's Monday morning motivation, we'll get started with what we just went through on our hour and a half long Zoom meeting before this, and we'll help motivate the people. But before we get to that, let's jump into last week's call to action with Mr. Joe Bell.
Yeah, that was a good one. And Mr. Joe Bell had a ton of information on how to go from that transactional mindset to that legacy wealth mindset. But we asked him kind of what is that one thing that people can do to get started now or to protect themselves in this market. And he's telling a lot of his newbie investors and new people trying to get into the game, use this opportunity to educate yourself and become a source of resources for others. And he had an interesting twist on this. It doesn't always necessarily mean you have to be the person producing the content, but you can share other people's content. So shoot, if you're sharing like a helpful article that on real estate or finances that you found beneficial, you can share it to the people you know on social media. You can share other people's podcasts, share books that you found beneficial. And by doing that, you're starting to establish yourself as a resource for others, even though you're not necessarily producing this content yourself. So educate yourself and become that resource for others. And a really easy way to do it, like he said, is, you don't always have to, pen to paper this yourself. You share other people's content that you found beneficial for others to consume. So
yeah. And it's like he said, it's all about what you can bring to the table for everybody. Becoming that person that consumes the content and shares it is going to make you the go-to person in a lot of people's lives. And that's what's key, man. That's key.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. Yeah, you guys, if you haven't checked out the episode with Joe Bell, go back and take a look, listen to that. Great episode coming live from some little tiny town in Alaska. So
yeah, it was awesome. So, and the motivation today, man, planning for the future, bro. That's what we did for the last hour and a half with our set, just discussing and starting the initial conversation with our goals for 2021. They're so important that we start a month ahead.
Well, and you should, right? Because I think if you're starting, Jan 1st, well, one, you're probably behind the 8 ball already, and two, this is a great time of year to start like doing a little bit of reflecting on what 2021, what 2020 was. A lot of people, there's a lot of negative connotations of 2020, and let's be honest, it wasn't fantastic, but you got to be able to pull some good out of it. You got to be able to take a look back and see what can you be grateful for, what can you be thankful for that you accomplished, that happened to you, and then use that to kind of move into 2021 goal setting. And talked about it a lot. We talk about it pretty regularly. It's so important to have a really, really, really clear vision on kind of where you want to go 3 years from now, where you want to go in 2021, and start breaking those down to actionable goals. And you're right, man. That's what we did for the last hour and a half about, kind of our podcast and kind of what we want to do in this world for 2021. And yeah, it's exciting, but you got to have that plan. You got to have that foresight to start to putting together that plan of action.
Absolutely. And, it's Monday morning. It's a new week. It's the beginning of December. And if you have not thought about your goals, that's what you really should do. I mean, you don't have to have your goal list finalized today. You don't have to have it finalized this week. You've got until the end of the month before January 1. But you really got to start planning ahead, like you said. And that's when the prior preparation kicks in. And that's what, prevents the poor performance. And I've used that several times. I learned that in college. And it's one of those things that we just want to get you a little bit excited. I was going to say the pumped up word, but I didn't. But we want to get you a little excited and get you thinking about your goals, because without goals, you're just, willy nilly running through life trying to do the best you can without focusing your attention. And goals are just the focal point for success. And that's what you really, really need to get into, starting that step right now.
Yeah, man. Without goals, you're just at the whims of other people's goals, right? So that's why it's so important to kind of set your own. And I've got kind of this assumption that 2021 is going to be the year of New Year's resolutions, because of how 2020 was, I'm imagining more people are going to be trying to set goals they never have before. So it's going to be important to do this, to have a strategy when you're doing it. I think we'll talk a lot about that in coming episodes, and like, what are some best practices with setting goals, and how can you just increase your chances for success on those? So look forward for some more content on just kind of the structure of like, what are some best practices on like how to set them, what areas of your life to set them, and how to follow up on them and whatnot. So excited to bring some of that content in the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys start thinking about it, ruminate on it a little bit, maybe throw, 50 goals down on a sheet of paper. And then as the month progresses, hone it down to your 5-10 top goals.
Yeah. So cool. All right. Let's move to our guest, man. And
dude,
yeah, this is a good one. This is Mr. Mark Pellets, and it's a fantastic story of how our guest came to be, man. How did we get Mark Pellets on the podcast?
Well, Mark and I started talking about property that he had for sale, and I involved in a group of investors that were looking to purchase his property. And him and I started negotiating. And I as I talked to him, I realized he was somebody that had a wealth of knowledge. So completely selfishly, I asked him to come on the podcast and jump on with us and share his wealth and of knowledge. And he graciously agreed to. And, it was a situation where we ended up not coming to an agreement on the property, which, it happens on hundreds and hundreds of properties. If you're not getting no's, then you're not asking enough.
Right.
And, and Mark was just gracious to come on there. And I know that you had no interaction with him to begin with. And you were a little bit, kind of like, all right, who is Mark? And then when we got on there, man, he just brought the knowledge. It was awesome.
Yeah, but you can call a spade, man. I got on the podcast. I'm like, all right, who's this dude Larry found to, what are we going to talk about? And my God, was I blown away by the end of this episode. So yeah, maybe that should have been the motivation for the week, is never judge a book by its cover. And now, always assume some positivity.
That'll be for next week.
Yeah, we'll save that one. But yeah, dude, my God, this guy is, he started off in real estate 2021, built up millions of dollars and hundreds of units by 25, lost it all, was living on the streets in his early 30s.
Oh, don't take his thunder, man.
Yeah, I won't give too much away. But then when we talk about how he built it all back up again, and the mindset that it's needed to go through those massive swings, and the mindset that he needed to change that second time around, so he knew he could build it sustainably and where it wasn't going to call crash and burn. So there's so much good content in this one. I can't stop talking about this. This one might be the top two.
It is. And I think that one of my favorite parts about the entire interview was, starting out watching the Zoom call, watching Mike on the Zoom call and watching him kind of looking apprehensive a little bit. And then just the change in your facial expressions and the whole, getting engaged with Mark.
I started awesome. Bouncing, man. I started bouncing. I was like, come on, let me talk. Let me ask some questions here. Yeah, so
that was awesome, man. Just the way you came back around full circle. And by the end of it, you were just like, I honestly, I went and looked at his books and bought one of his books, and I think you probably did the same thing, because he's just a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, yep, for sure. So this is a good one.
Yep. So that's coming up this Thursday. And, I hope you guys all have a phenomenal week. Get out there, start thinking about those goals. Make sure you turn into Mr. Mark Pellets, who converted Mike Doubter in the beginning of the interview into a firm believer.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of him now. Yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Marathon podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Real Estate Marathon podcast. If you found value in any of the content from this show, consider supporting us in the following ways. Subscribe to the Real Estate Marathon podcast. Leave a rating and review. Continue the conversation with like-minded individuals on social media by heading over to the Real Estate Marathon podcast Facebook group, or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Real Estate Marathon Podcast.